just like we always go. 'Cause you were so excited to finally drive up to your house. But today I drove through the suburbs, crying 'cause you weren't around. You're probably with a blonde girl who always made me down. She's so much older than me. She's everything I'm insecure about. Yeah, today I drove through the suburbs. How could I ever love someone else? And I know we were perfect, but I never felt this way for no one. And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. 'Cause you didn't mean what you wrote in the song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past your street. And all my friends are tired of hearing how much I miss you. I kind of feel sorry for them. They never know you the way that I do. Yet today I drove through the suburbs. Pictured I was driving home to you. And I know you weren't perfect, but I never felt this way for no one. And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. 'Cause you didn't mean what you wrote in the song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past your street. Red lights, stop signs, I still see your face in the white cars, front yards. Can't drive past the places we used to go to. 'Cause I still love you, baby. Sidewalks we crossed, I still hear your voice. In the traffic we're laughing over all the noise. God, I'm so blue. No, we're through, but I still love you, baby. I know we weren't perfect, but I never felt this way for no one. And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. 'Cause you didn't mean what you wrote in the song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past your street. Yeah, you said forever, now I drive alone past your street. You are a fire, the one desire, believe when I say I want it that way. But we are two worlds apart, can't reach to your heart. What you say, I want it that way. Tell me why ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why ain't nothing but a mistake. Tell me why I never wanna hear you say I want it that way. Am I your fire, your one
Hi everyone. I was giving like 5 minutes to start, but I think we can do it. So, hi everyone. As Sergio was saying, we don't know never if it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It depends on which part of the globe you are. Welcome to our 10th Desis Café. Today it will be hosted by Art and Design e-learning lab. We began this year in Cyprus with the Desis Café hosted by Nikos Solelos, who so kindly opened the doors of the Faculty of Fine and Applied Arts from Cyprus University of Technology. As some of you know, the concept of the Desis Café is to have an informal chat about the activities the labs are developing or research projects, difficulties, expectations, whatever you want to talk about the activities you are doing in your Desis lab. I like to remind you that it's important to open your mic. Don't write things on the chat. Please just open your mic and talk. The idea is precisely to have this informal chat while we are here. After this Desis Café, we will go to China in March. But we still have some opening spots to host Desis Café during this year. So if you are considering to host one session in 2023, drop a line and let us know, and then we can arrange with you to organize a Desis Café. So right now, what I can say is that I will give the floor to Nikos. The cafe is yours. So, and I hope we all enjoy what Nikos has to say.
Yeah, I will try to make it interesting. I'm not sure if I will succeed, but I will try. Anyway, good afternoon, I don't know, good evening, wherever you are, east or west. Hello to all of you. Some faces I know, I've seen before, but I don't know everyone here. Now then, I need to share this screen. Share screen. Share, okay. And I need to play this here. Okay, so I hope this is visible.
Yes, it is.
I call today's, thank you. I call today's talk, if you like, I called it Designing the Education of the Social Designer. One of the better terms I could think of. And I have always been attracted to this quote by Herbert Simon. You might have heard of him, but he uses quote mostly for engineering, my understanding is, but it's one of those quotes about design that we use very often. We refer to it very often because it's such a truism, what he said. Everyone designs who devises courses of action aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones. Existing situations into preferred ones. I'll stay with that for a while. We are located in Cyprus. Now, Cyprus is in the East Mediterranean. It's very close to Syria and Lebanon, believe it or not. You might know of this little island, and at the bottom of this island, somewhere at the very bottom, is a city, a town, possibly a city of roughly 250,000 people, maybe. It's called Limassol. And I'm north of that personally. I live in a little village up on the mountains inland in Limassol. So the university I work for is Cyprus University of Technology. It's a relatively new university. Let me see if I can go back there again. It's a relatively new university. It's only been going since 2007. It's a public university. It has about 3,000 learners, undergraduate, postgraduate programs. It's a relatively small university. and a public one for that matter. It's a second public university. It's the newest one, if you like, of the two big public universities that exist in Cyprus. And the emphasis very much is on technology, as the name implies, although there is an art and design faculty as well. A brief introduction about our lab. I started working here in Cyprus University of Technology in 2011. 1 year later, I had some what I call seed funding. I was in the School of Fine and Applied Arts, Department of Multimedia and Graphic Arts, and we set up a team. We set up our first research lab team, and these are some of the members of our team. It's a very diverse team. And the members are from all around the place. People that we rely upon when we have projects, when we have funding, when we need particular expertise, so
because we are not seeing anything. We just see a white slide.
Okay. Let me see. How do I fix that? Let me see. How do I fix that technology? Huh? God. Let me just go back here. How do I fix that now? Why can you not see? That's because I jumped out of the presentation to go into the web page. So let me just very quickly see how I can stop this. And you can see me, I assume, now.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I share? What can I share? Can I share? So every time
you can share.
Share my desktop.
Yeah,
there you go.
If you share your desktop, we can see.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay. So that's the lab members that with diverse skills and a very flat structure, as I was telling you before. People from all kinds of disciplines, maybe even social activists and somebody who's into marketing and somebody who's into visual communication and activism and all kinds of things, editorial work. It's a very diverse lab. We go back to these people whenever we have a specific task for them, when we have funding, when they want something from us, when we want something from them. So it's a very dynamic relationship we have with our colleagues, if you like, our partners. And so let me just go back to the presentation now. Okay, you can see that, I assume, or not? No, you cannot see that.
Oh, you have to go
back to there. Oh my God, I have to keep switching every time between the two. Oh, terrible. Right, I better get used to that. Where was I playing? So the lab effectively used to work in what we call education research, technology, enhanced learning, and various funded projects from Cyprus Research Foundation, from Erasmus Plus. We also work very close with Hub Nicosia, which is a very interesting place for social innovation in the capital. It's called Hub Nicosia. Cyprus itself, a little bit about the cultural context here, gained independence in 1960. There was a war that divided the island in 1974. There were about 200,000 refugees that came from the north to the south. To 1974, that's in living memory, obviously, for a lot of people here. The population of the south, if you like, what they call the Republic of Cyprus, is very small, 1 million something, 1,300,000. They joined the EU in 2004. Greeks, British, Russians, these are the big communities of people you will find here, but also East Europeans, people from the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Vietnam. It's quite diverse like that. The main industry on this island is the services, tourism, financial services as well, 80% of GDP and 70% of the workforce. I mean, Cyprus is very well known for being, if you like, a host of all kinds of services, the service sector. But there are also problems. And one of the problems is what we can quite easily say is corruption, widespread corruption. Recently, on the right-hand side, you can see I checked, there's the transparency index, there's a corruption index online. And the higher up you go on this list, the less corruption you have, if you like. And Cyprus is 53 on the list, next to Grenada, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Mauritius, and Malta. So yes, corruption is a big problem here. Has been noted very often. There was also a very interesting Al Jazeera program on what they call the golden passports in 2020. This is like, you know, you give me the money, I'll give you a European Union passport. So this is a lot, I'm talking a lot about the cultural context because you will see later I will connect it to the work we're doing, the cultural context. But this is one of the big problems on the island. There's also a lot of pollution. There is a very bad habit here to dump things anywhere randomly. And on the left-hand side, you see a fridge. That's a fridge, a refrigerator. Somebody just dumped it in the forest up the road from here. On the right-hand side, you can see, you know, this is a real picture. Somebody just went outside the capital and dumped these things like that. So they have all kinds of problems with pollution, with the environment. And there was a seminal paper, because I'm trying to, a seminal book, there is a seminal book, because I'm trying to give you a little bit about the cultural context, because it relates very much to what we do as a lab. The one book that I feel that captured very well what this society is all about is this book. The cover, of course, is in Greek, but the translation is The Society of Hillbillies. The cultural and political underdevelopment of Greek Cypriots at the start of the 21st century. And this is written by Cypriots. So he goes on about, it's a sociological analysis, and he goes on about how ethically bankrupt, if you like, Cypriot society is. And that's putting it mildly. Anyway, in this context, you can imagine there are all kinds of social problems. Social challenges, if you like. And in recent years, I was fortunate enough to watch a presentation by the leader of the Green Party. The Green Party, there is a Green Party here, believe it or not, and he projected this slide on the wall, on the screen. And he was referring to some of the immediate social challenges that Cyprus is confronted with. And there's a list there. So I took a quick snapshot because I thought he from his political position, if you like, he would have some awareness of the issues. Supporting people with disabilities, messaging services, Alzheimer's patients, support, fighting poverty, restaurants for the poor, homeless support, youth employment, job placement, disabilities, drug users, sex workers, community secondhand shops, second furniture repairs. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. Promotion of waste prevention, community composting, dog shelters, stray dogs, big problem here in Cyprus, advice on energy use. So I thought that was very interesting in that encompasses all the social issues that, or some of the main social issues that this society is confronted with. Now, for us, because we started with design education, technology, enhanced learning, and all that stuff as the lab, inevitably, there was a transition from research into design education, which inevitably led us, all of us, move to research into social design education. We kind of progressed, if you like. There was a metabasis, there was a transition. Because we were focusing predominantly on design education, inevitably we touched upon social design, and we touched upon it in, if you like, in a theoretical way, in an academic way, even though we had all these social problems around us. We got into it firstly through the academic way, if you like. That's the only way we could get into it. Now, oh my God, how do I see my screen now? And how do I see my cursor? This is terrible, terrible, terrible. Sorry, I need to find my screen. I don't have a mouse for some reason. Hello?
Yes, we can still see your presentation, Nikos.
Ah, right. I didn't have a mouse for a moment. I wondered what happened. Okay, let me continue then. So in 2017, as part of this transition, we decided to introduce, we felt relatively confident to introduce a subject, one subject in our undergraduate degree, Introduction to Social Design, Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We were the first, if you like, lab in our university that introduced a cross-disciplinary subject. Fourth year, final year, one semester long, 13 weeks, 3 hours per week. And it was, as I said before, a cross-departmental a team of learners. It was the students from our department, Applied Arts and Design, and the students from Management and Economics. They were also interested to join into the delivery of this subject. So it was a project-based subject. The students had 13 weeks, and we based around the IDEO model, which I'm sure you're familiar with. We have 13 weeks. We have to deliver a small-scale project in teams, cross-disciplinary teams. Let's do this. Let's work our way through. You can see here some of our students working on projects. I'll show you more of those later. But this is how the delivery happened, where for the first time these students work with students of another discipline and come out of their barriers, if you like, the academic barrier. And it's a very interesting experience, and we continue to teach this subject. It's been now 5 years, 6 years that we've been teaching it. And we have a number of student projects, which I will try to share with you, but I'm not sure if I will be successful.
You have to go again out and show again.
Stop sharing and get out again. Oh my God, that's terrible. So we'll show you some of those projects. There you go. Every year we put those projects, every year we put these projects online. So we accumulate them. So we started, having, if you like, a little portal for all the students' projects since 2017. We still have the 2022 projects to add, which was last autumn. But it gives you an idea of the kind of things that the students are doing, something on recycling, something on promoting public transport, elimination of single-use plastics, and so on. And we use the IDEO model, as I was saying before, over 13 weeks. It is a challenging thing because the students want to save the world. And you have to convince them that thinking globally, but acting locally is the best way to go about it now. And focus on what you have in front of you in your neighborhood, in your surroundings, at school, at university. And it's not an easy thing to limit, if you like, their enthusiasm. I mean, it's one of the projects I did last year on recycling, which Cyprus has a huge problem with recycling clothes. But I was going to show you a couple of those, because then that way we can go into, if you like, the nitty-gritty of things that we're going to say. I mean, one of the interesting projects that the students did was this one here, if I can find it, on, where was it, 2017? 2017, yeah, homophobia. Okay, so the problem here was that the students looked around them and decided that there was a big issue with homophobia on campus. So they had to work out a way using this IDEO model to come up with something to at least to raise awareness about it. So they, as part of the project, they have to develop also. They have to record the process. Of course, they have to record the process, and they have to, show us how they progress towards some intervention, if you like, some solution, nevertheless. And this particular group was 3 students. So they, start applying the IDEO model of Who are they? Now they started hanging around at the student coffee shops, and they started looking at some statistics too. And then they started the define process, the ideate process. You know, they developed all these things. They came up with a number of solutions and answers and potential things that they could do. Then they looked overseas to see what else, if anything, has been done, and what does the audience enjoy. And they realized very quickly that actually the students like to play cards. Okay, the students like to play cards. So then they thought, oh, okay, we can use that. So part of their project was to design these cards, these playing cards. There you go, design playing cards, but every card has a message. And the idea was to raise awareness, if you like, you know, to expose students to another view, if you like, about homophobia. Now, you can realize that they've also produced a timetable, of course. This particular project needed a budget as well. They needed money. All of this in 13 weeks too. So they needed money. So in order to find the money, they had to do some crowdfunding, because they were going to create not one set of cards, but they're going to create 50 or 100 sets of cards that they want to let loose in the coffee shops where the students hang around. Now, that's a very interesting concept for 13 weeks. And let us not forget that the title of the project is the title of the subject, rather, is Introduction to Social Design. And these students haven't done anything like this before in their lives. They don't have any previous experience. They also produce a promotional video, of course, for their crowdfunding. I don't know if this is going to work, and we don't have to watch it all, but it will be interesting to see the work that the students have done to promote it.
Homophobia as a social issue is evident in university environments among students. Sadly, some university students tend to adopt negative stereotypes and prejudices. Occasionally, they demonstrate provocative and violent attitudes towards the LGBTQ community, including swearing, offending, humiliating, and marginalizing anyone who's different.
Okay, I'm not going to play anymore, but I think you get the drift, because I have to move on to the next thing I need to tell you. But that was one of the projects that came out of the semester-long subject. Another very nice project is this one here, which was absolutely excellent. This was more a visual campaign, but again, to raise awareness. Let's not forget they only have 13 weeks, so they can't really, you know, save the Amazon in 13 weeks. And it's very difficult to convince them about this because they're enthusiastic. Once again, the process is the same here. So what they do is they have to record the process, they have to come up with solutions and implement it. This particular group was concerned about the use of single-use plastics at Cyprus University of Technology. Now, until very recently, Cyprus was actually being fined by the EU. The EU was fining Cyprus because it wasn't meeting its target for the recycling of plastic. And the worst offender was, of course, single-use plastics. So this was a big issue. And then they went around the campus, the students, and realized that indeed there is a need for some awareness on this issue. This is a particularly big group, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students, who again followed the same process like the others with the IDEO model. We only have 13 weeks. Empathize, define, ideate with their ideas, define the timetable, develop their visual campaign, go around campus and you know, advertise it, promote it, but also contact local green groups and get the green groups to come on campus. So they moved all around. This created a particular date for an event. They promoted it on social media. They kept statistics and figures on how this idea was going on social media. And then they organized the event. and lots of people came, lots of green groups came, talked to the students. They had products that were recyclable, and they explained all kinds of things. They've even produced they've also produced a little video of the event, I think. Is this, or it's probably a slideshow, I assume. There it is. But I'm going to stop this now because that's not the purpose of the presentation, to show you this. I'm going to carry on with some reflections on all this process. But let me make sure that I'm sharing my screen again. Okay, share. Right. So this is the kind of work the students do over a period of 13 weeks. And I gave you some glimpses of a couple of projects. There are even more. I mean, one of my favorite ones is this one here, which did an amazing job to raise awareness about food waste, which is one of the, it is listed in one of the Sustainable Development Goals, food waste and waste of resources, I believe. Again, another cross-disciplinary team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 students here. Their idea was that they went to a dog shelter, and at the dog shelter, they lined up the people that run the dog shelter, and they asked them if they could bring food from restaurants. Then they went and found a particular restaurant, and they started a whole campaign raising awareness with the people that went to the restaurant and the clients in the restaurant, and then they collected the food and took it to the shelter. It was a one-off event. We do allow them to organize one-off events, if you like, because we're fully familiar that, they can't do much in 13 weeks. But this lot went to town. They even created logos and posters and all kinds of things, and got very enthusiastic about it, distributed information about it, and all kinds of ideas. And then eventually they gathered all of, they even went to the restaurant, as I was telling you, to inform the clients. Also produced a promotional video, promoted it online, and so on and so forth. I think you can follow the pattern now. This is one of my favorite ones for this year, actually, because I think they did such a thorough job, and it was such a great idea that actually found a real need. They found people who could use their output, if you like, could use what they're doing, what they're producing. Let me just go back here. Can you see my screen or not really?
Now you stop sharing, so you need to share again.
I need to share again. Okay. Now, all of this, of course, us being academics, we start reflecting on it. We start thinking about it, about how we teach social design in a country which has that cultural context that I tried to explain before, tried to describe earlier on. And when we look at our teaching and learning at our university, there's a culture of over-assessment and teacher-centered pedagogies. Over-assessment, I mean, there's some conception here among my vast majority of my colleagues that we need to over-assess our students. And this was particularly evident in the students from the management and economics department, that when they came to join our students in the fine arts and design, the two most popular questions they have to ask us is, when is the final exam? When is the midterm exam? And they always get the same answer back, which is, there is no final exam, there is no midterm exam. And this is something that they cannot comprehend. It's difficult for them. It's difficult for them to understand that they can do a degree and not have to have exams. The questions we ask ourselves is, why don't our graduates pursue social design activities and interests after graduation? That's a question we ask ourselves. The first bullet is a question the students ask us. The second question is a question we ask ourselves. What can we do so that don't lose that interest in social design when they graduate? So we started, if you like, researching social design in a very perhaps naive way, but we had to start somewhere. And one of the earlier papers we wrote was this one, Design for Social Change in Design Education, Social Challenges versus Teacher-Centered Pedagogies. And I'm not going to go into detail about what that paper is about. I'm sure you can find it online. But one of the conclusions to this paper was that, if design education is to contribute effectively towards some social change, then we as teachers, we as educators need to get rid of the master-apprentice instructional model. Some of you may know it as the CRIT. This is the model that you see in the photo. This is a real photo. You can't see the students and you can't see the tutor, but it's a real photo. And what you have here is a typical example of the master-apprentice model. These are real students in a real classroom, and they don't see what each other is doing. And the teacher, if you like, the educator, goes around and guides them. This is, in my view, this is contrary to any notion of a good design education. And it is in opposition to the competencies we need to support design for social change. I mean, if we don't have this dialogue, and I'll say a bit more about the dialogue later, between learners and academics, then difficult to teach social design. So that, as we started reflecting more on social design as well, we wrote a paper recently with my good colleague Anna and Stefania on threshold concepts and design for social change. Now, threshold concepts are very difficult to explain, and particularly if you never heard the term before. But the whole idea about threshold concepts is that this is knowledge that breaks barrier. Once you master it, once you master that knowledge, you are transformed in terms of knowing your subject. It's a little bit like not being able to swim, and suddenly you can swim, and a whole new world opens up. And liminal stage is a space, they compare it to the space where adolescents are. They're not adults yet, and they're not quite children, so they're in a liminal space, and that's the stage we are before we break into a threshold concept. So one of the conclusions we drew in this paper was that threshold concepts are integrative. In other words, if we are to teach social design, design for social change, we have to start thinking about threshold concepts that are integrated. In other words, they combine a lot of different areas, and that inherently require cross-disciplinary abilities, if you like. And also the other conclusion we had about threshold concepts is that they're associated with a significant level of practice-based knowledge. We're not dealing here simply with, knowing, if you like, the causes of the French Revolution, quite a complex revolution. We're dealing more like, how do you apply something to something? Practice-based knowledge. So this was our work on threshold concepts and design for social change. And I tried to keep it simple. Another thing we did recently, and we're still working on this, is we looked at these 42 institutions. Wow. And we went online and we downloaded everything and anything they had that had to do with social design masters or undergraduate degrees, because we were interested to map these areas competencies, how they view competencies, how they view entry criteria, the program content, the teaching and learning strategies, the assessment, how they assess, and what innovations, what's different. I'm not going to go into the details of this. I mean, we're still shifting through the data for this, but this is the kind of work we're doing, if you like, academically. And this brought me to this thing, to Manzini, who, and I think I've got the reference down at the bottom. We need intentional conventions they are required to foster an effective social design culture that is dialogic. Now, dialogic is dialogue. It's like a Greek word from having a dialogue. So we need these, dialogical intentional conventions, if you like, and Manzini quotes this as something that it comes out of a broad social learning process, that again, of course, entails conversation and dialogue. And when we are reflecting back to this mapping exercise that I was telling you before, the one that we looked at 42 different programs of study, we concluded as well that this dialogical approach, if you like, is important also in terms of the formal education of the social designer. In other words, it has to be integrative. The competencies have to be integrative, and there has to be a conversation between different knowledge domains. And somehow all of this needs to be embedded in the program of studies. So we continue to work on the education of the social designer, but we also cannot ignore the wider cultural context. And in our case, is the context that I was describing to you before in Cyprus. And we also keep thinking and reflecting on things. And one of the obvious reflections we've had is, why do some communities and some societies display higher levels of social awareness compared to others? And I can refer you to the earlier parts of this presentation about corruption, about pollution, and so on. But nevertheless, as educators, we continue to plant seeds and continue to ask questions. So I don't want to go any further than that, except to close by showing you some photos of our students, different groups of students the last few years. We did work through COVID, of course, and they are like that. They are enthusiastic about what they do. For us, the challenge is what happens after they graduate. How much of this do they take with them? How much of this do they actually implement out there and communicate out there? This was one particular group on promoting public transport, actually, which is a huge problem in Cyprus. The lack of it is a problem. And that's the end of it. And I was told, this is the classroom. Yes, you can get an idea of how close we work to each other and how these teams work to each other. And of course, they can get up and go next to the table next to them and have a look at what the others are doing. You can imagine the culture shock of the management students having to work like this and having to study like this when all they are used to is, give me the chapters I have to read, when is the exam? So you can imagine the culture shock that hits them. Anyway, and lastly, that's another photo of the same group, I think. Yep. And lastly, I was reminded to tell you that we have an online journal. Our lab started this online journal 2-3 years ago. It's a 5th issue now. I will put the link into the chat if any of you are interested. We have a March deadline for the next issue. It's an open access journal. Well, okay, I can stop here. Right.
Fantastic, Nico. Thank you very much. So we have here some people from different parts of the world, which is great. As you has arrived, I was telling Nikos that as you probably couldn't come to this Desis Café, but here you are. So if you want to also check with Nikos the citation he did from your book, you can discuss that with with him. So thank you, Nikos. It was really, really interesting. And one of the things that we have spoken before about the cultural context where you are, one of the things, do you interact with your neighbors, like with Syria and with Lebanon? Do you have students there or not at all?
That's a very good question. You are asking me good questions, because it was your very interesting idea to bring the cultural context on board, and it was such an important thing to the challenge we face as educators. And one of the challenges I face as an educator is walking into a classroom that is monoculture. So I just about managed to break down the barriers between two departments and the students of two departments talking to each other and collaborating on small scale local social challenges. But I have to admit to you that when I look at my classroom overall, it is a monoculture, and that's a big problem. And I have never seen anything like this in my life before, because I have taught in Australia, I have taught in England, and I have even taught in the Emirates. And even in the Emirates, the culture was diverse. There were a lot of Arab people, Muslim people, but from different countries. My students are 99.9% from the same culture, which is a concern.
And you are in a very fragile geographic situation with Syria and with Lebanon. So I don't know if there are some people that want to ask something to Nikos.
Hello.
Hello, Sergio.
Hey, Nico. It's really interesting, a lot of work that you have been doing in your lab. And I was thinking about this question that you made about why don't graduates pursue social design activities after graduation. And this is something that I've been struggling a lot, like how to project the projects or the work that the students are doing in the courses and in the lab for to continue in the mid or long term. And how can I, from the lab, support these activities? What I have been doing is all the projects are developed with a collaborator. Normally we work a lot with different departments of my university, or sometimes with some social organizations that can keep active these projects in sometimes. But what are your thoughts in this area? And another question about like is in this case almost I think that a lot of the focus is on the students, but my question is about how you being creating connection with different stakeholders, for example, with professors, and how are you integrating another part of the university in your activities in order to support this kind of ecosystem?
Yeah, very good questions, and I wish I had the answers. During my presentation, I was telling you that we did the metabasis, a transition after 2017, and we are still lonely voices on campus. I mean, I find it extremely hard to believe that on our campus, our subject, the subject of social design, is the only cross-disciplinary subject that we have. And academics, in the vast majority of cases, are interested in their research and how to get grants and how to get funding. And my wish and our wish as a team is, how do we sustain the interest of the students beyond the lifespan of the 13-week semester? I don't have the answers to that. But what I can tell you what I do, I'll tell you what I do, because I'm trying various tricks here, okay? I'm trying tricks. I don't know what will work. I don't have the answers. But one of the tricks I try with the students to maintain their interest beyond the lifespan of the semester-long subject is that one of the things they have to produce for us, is of course the process online, including social media. Now, when they turn up to the social media bits, the Facebook account, I asked them not to close do not close the Facebook account. You finished, you're done, you took your degree, thank you, leave the Facebook account alive. And so my hope is that, you know, some of them will return to that account where they are also administrators and start engaging with the subject matter again. I don't know if it works. The necessity of everyday life, you know, to get a job, you know, to be employed, to pursue a career, these things work in contrast to pursuing any social design notion on this island. And it's also very difficult for academics to evaluate the value of a subject like this. And yet, the students give you the best assessment. They've never done anything like this. And we're talking about, you know, threshold concepts. Their mind opens up and they think after 4 years, oh my God, I don't have an exam. I actually have a project to do. Oh, wow, I don't have the answers. I'm still a beginner. I'm still, you know, fiddling around trying to find the answers to all of this. My hope was that the students' projects would generate some pride in themselves. And indeed, I noticed the last few years, more of them are putting on their CV the work they did online. So people can see that they've done actually some basic design thinking, if you like. So they're using it in some respects, you know, to enhance their CV. But my hope was also that my colleagues would get some pride in understanding the value of that learning experience. And hopefully if they see it, then they will think more positive about it. But at this stage, I'm knocking on doors. I don't have answers. Sorry.
Thank you.
Who else wants to open the mic? No one? Ezio, do you want to say something? You need to open the mic, Ezio, if you are.
Good morning. Good morning. Very good afternoon. I'm very sorry because, first of all, my voice is not good. You listen me?
Yes.
But I have not listened you so well. I don't know why. Especially when Nikos was talking, he was so low that I had to put this and make like try to understand. But I'm not sure. But first of all, in any case, I've seen the picture, so I think that I have had some ideas of what you was talking about. But I would prefer to use the small quantity of voice that I still have to say something about the last question done by Sergio and the answer. I think in our discussion, now our means not only Desis, but who is in different way at the crossroad in between design and social, there is always a kind of a friction in between considering that we are doing a kind of activism. And so we have to help the student to understand the real dimension and the ethical value of what you are doing. And on the other side, we are professionals that are capable to apply what they know and the tools and the methods that they know to every kind of project. So the project that we do not ask for special designers and do not ask for a special design. Ask for communication, strategic, service, product, interior design applied on an issue that is related to social change. Mm-hmm. Normally, I don't like to go in detail in the term, but given that this is a discussion now, the first one call it social design, And the second one, call it design for social innovation. And social design has implicit the fact that you are a designer who decide to do something that have a social value. And in the traditional social design, this was not a profession. This was something that people do as an activist in a voluntary way. Where design for social innovation is design, is whatever design can do. The issue is, you could say, but how much work there is on this field? But I would say there is work. And there is work, and it needs maybe some strategic design capability to find it. I will give some example. If I take from my experience in Italy in particular, but I know that it's similar in other places. If we discuss about the social service related to health and care, there is a big discussion about how the health service have to change. And the change that they have to do is related to creating communities. In Italy, we have a law now that say that all the healthcare system, official law, will be based on something related to the home of care. The home of community, sorry, the home of community, imagining that this community is a community of care. And therefore, this is an idea, but to really make it, you should have a designer that are capable to make this kind of social innovation with others, of course.
Yeah.
But hopefully this designer will be paid because it's a normal work. I could say, I know, in the case of energy, we have a lot of discussion about the energy communities. And there are several places that are starting to organize energy communities. And these energy communities now are not an hippie-like organization. For the good and for the bad, I will not say that everything on this side is fantastic. I only say that if a little bit of this energy community will start, they will have a lot of work for design. In many cities in Italy, and not only in Italy, the mayor are proposing to move toward what I call the city of proximity, and people in general call it the 15-minute city. Well, if they do that, you need a lot of social change, social technological institutional change, and you need a lot of designers that help the process. I could continue. I will say practically 20 years of social innovation, the past 20 years of social innovation has generated seeds that now are penetrating in society. And we as designers should be capable to make ourselves, that the other recognize that we are capable to do something. For what I see at the moment, paradoxically, there is more demand than offer. So there is the demand of some kind of service or some kind of activities that are, to put them in place, they need social change. But normally, they do not think to the designers to help the process. Because if it is related to the city, they think to the planners or to the architects. If it is related to social services, they think to some social worker, a social scientist, maybe helped with some, yes, the digital component. So all those things now are based on some digital service, some digital platform, and this digital service and platform have to be designed. So I will not appear to be so optimistic now. I will not say that everything is rosy. I only will say it is a choice that there is a kind of standard way of doing social innovation and to do design for social innovation. And that is, in my view, do not require to be a hero as a designer to do it. It could be a work. At the same time, and now promise everybody, for me, this is the basis. Afterward, and this is the basis to say that people can find work. The problem is that the situation now is so tough for the issue about the environment, for the issue about war, that I feel that the whole design community should make also a step in activism. But this is not something to be paid. This is not something that can be paid. You cannot pretend to be paid because you are an activist. So I think that the two things have to be put together. So the life is always complex. There is no only one answer. I say, come to design, learn something, and do some work in the social change area. Try to find where it is, where, and to present yourself, to be capable to make people recognize the design culture, design knowledge can bring some contribution. At the same time, you have to be activist in the sense to push all this story in the direction that is more radical, or even something that cannot be paid. Because if I work today for design for peace, of course, there is nobody that pays for designing something for peace.
I can see other people here, Anna, Bernagozzi, we have Cecilia. Do you want to add something to the discussion?
I don't know. Hi, everybody. Ciao, Ezio. Ciao, Teresa. Just to continue probably what Ezio was saying, I think that it also depends on, I mean, we are all, I think all of us here, passionate people about design for social innovation. And most of us probably do, even if we are pushed by the research, and we know the research is always linked for the search of money, etc. We are all engaged, I think, each and every one of you in this Desis Café in activities where we have to engage either there is money or not. And this is a little bit complicated. It depends from the university we are in. I mean, for us, being a public university, I don't know what kind of university you are. It's kind of also normal also to engage because we are public. Okay, so it's part of kind of duty for us to be engaged in this design for social innovation issues, and then by design. But in private university is different. So and it depends on the context, of course, etc. So it's a very delicate point, I think, what you're touching. But that's the point of us, for example, in France, in a public university, which is probably a little bit easier to do than in another place. Just a very general reflection.
Yeah. I'm thinking about that we are in a public university too, and this kind of activism or kind of duty of the professors and kind of retribution to society, I think it's a fundamental part of what we need to do. And I'm trying to do it, but as probably always you know, it's a great challenge.
Yeah, also, I think one of the things, there are some kinds, I feel being a professor, I deal a lot with groups of students that are super passive. They don't know anything. They are not active. And then there are other groups that are more active. Then when you introduce these kind of topics and they start working in this kind of topics, they feel like, I don't know if it was Sergio or if it was Nikos, but this idea of pride, they feel proud of the things they are doing because they are working in real context. They know they have an impact on the community they are working. So I think this, we plant a seed, as you were saying, but then in real life, as Nikos was also saying, where do I get my salary at the end of the month? How can I work on these kind of things? So this is something that I think we are promoting the change. We are introducing this at least in the next design generations. Of course, it's not an easy task, and I think we all have struggled a lot when we are teaching these kind of issues, even with our colleagues. So I think it's not an easy task, and for the students, I think it's important that somewhere someone can start introducing these topics and putting them working on this. So I was asking Nikos precisely if you work with your neighbor countries, because you are in a very specific situation with the refugees, with the war in Syria, with all the, and it's really strange that you don't have this, because you are near, really close to them. And it could be also interesting to have these bridges between the countries to work on topics that are really fragile and sensitive, like the war, the refugees, and
the one thing that you did say to me is to deal a little bit with the cultural context, is the one that actually, when I started thinking about it and incorporating a little bit into this presentation, is the one that actually has the biggest barriers for me. and working with people of other cultures, I mean, I have to admit, there's a fair bit of racism here in this country, a fair bit. And as you can imagine, that's a bit of a block. It's a bit of a block. And I find the whole society here in Cyprus, and particularly for young people growing up with these cultural barriers, if you like, only creates further cultural barriers. It doesn't break it down in any way. I mean, perhaps the big picture we should be asking is how to break down these cultural barriers before we even start thinking about design education and design innovation and all the lovely things. I mean, you know, what I think of myself is planting a seed. You know, I was showing you, I was closing the presentation earlier and saying, thinking that, you know, we're throwing littles. I know it's an easy metaphor to use, but throwing a seed and hope that, you know, one or two of these people somewhere down the road will actually, you know, reflect on what they did as part of the course and maybe consider some social issues and maybe become even activists. For 13 weeks, they were, if you like, pretend activists. They took on a role, and with our guidance and our help, they tried to reflect on a social issue, if you like, a local, small-scale thing that they can deal with. But how that we sustain this and bring it beyond university life and how we engage the other stakeholders, that's a good question. Very good question, how we do that. And indeed, you know, when they are thinking about, I mean, one of the things I didn't tell you before here is, in terms of the cultural context, is that the average wage here is 900 euros a month, which is a lot higher than what it is in Greece, which is only what, 500-600 a month, it may be even less than that. And that's the average wage here. I mean, if you have a wage of 1,000 euros a month, you're considered quite well off here. And you can imagine what that does to young people, and a lot of hidden unemployment and a lot of social issues as well. How do you break the vicious circle? I have no idea how you break the vicious circle, but I do feel that we are, through our education and our reflection on how to become better teachers, if you like, of social design, that maybe we're going down the right path. It's perhaps the only path we have in our hands right now, education. you know, it's an area of active interest for us, the design of the education of the social designer. I'll come back to you in 5 years' time and tell you if we have achieved anything. At this stage, I can't tell you much more than that, beyond the fact that the students enjoy doing this kind of work, and beyond the fact that it has some transformative potential in the way they approach things. And again, we're back to this notion of threshold concepts of, you know, if you break a barrier, then another world opens up in front of you and you can see things differently. And we're back to how do you sustain this? I know, very philosophical discussion, I understand. But nevertheless, that's the world we function as a lab. That's where we are, if you like.
Anyone?
I think it's very interesting about this. How do you evaluate the impact of, and I think in the social projects is always an issue. How do you evaluate the impact of the projects? And in this case, let's hope in 5 years we have something more tangible. And at least in what I have been doing is trying to reach the students after some years and see how are they doing. Fortunately, I have seen some of them trying to start new projects or trying to implement those of the learnings in what I think they are doing now. But yeah, that's a challenge.
I mean, I'm even actually thinking now, since we're running this subject from 2017, and we've been running it now for 5 years, and the vast majority of our students have graduated. I'm even thinking now, and I have them in a Facebook group, I'm even actually thinking of going back to them now and saying, okay, all of you that are graduates, and you finished and you did the subject with our team, would you be interested to be involved in a real social design project, something outside of the classroom, if you like? So, you know, I'm probably going to wait a couple more years before I suggest that to them, so that I can have a good pool of graduates that are still in this social media environment where we keep in touch with them. But I'm wondering if so many of them would like to come back and form, if you like, another subgroup and take on real projects that are outside the classroom. So I've got all these ideas playing in my mind of how to expand it and how to, you know, eat into society, if you like, and you know, break down barriers again.
Yeah, but Nikos, you know that last year I worked with my students on a real context with the African students that comes from the Portuguese ex-colonies that are studying here, and there was a local association working with them, and the students were working with students from urban planning from another department, and they were so enthusiastic with that they continue even during their holidays, their summer holidays, and they continue now working with the African students and with the other students. So sometimes if they feel motivated, they just go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the assessment they have in the course. And
okay, can I say something here? I mean, I apologize for interrupting. I totally apologize, because I don't want this thought to leave my mind. Somewhere in my presentation, and I apologize, Teresa, somewhere in my presentation, I said, you know, why are some societies more receptive, if you like, to social design education, to social design issues? Why do some societies have more awareness, if you like? And I've even reached the point now where I'm actually thinking that we need to develop social awareness indicators. Now, you guys are, if I understand well, are in Portugal. Now, when I do a comparison between, if you like, a cultural, to what extent can you really do these comparisons is a good question. But nevertheless, if we were to make a cultural comparison between Portugal and Cyprus, my gut feeling is, and this is anecdotal evidence, it's not something I have scientifically in front of me, I don't have the evidence somewhere to defend what I'm going to say now, but it is anecdotal evidence. And what I will say to you is my limited understanding, and I'm careful with my words, of social awareness in Portugal, if you like, and understanding the notion of a community that needs to have some level of solidarity, if you like, to tackle some issues at local level, whatever, versus the same thing in Cyprus. My gut feeling is that Portugal is miles ahead. And so the next question to ask is this specific difference? Why is it that some societies have more of this awareness and others don't? I showed you in my photo, I showed you in my presentation, 2 pictures only. And one of the pictures was a fridge, a real fridge in front of a forest. There's a fridge in a forest. Somebody dumped a fridge in front of a forest. It's a real forest I'm talking about. This is not an isolated incident. The leader of the Green Party showed us photos of people dumping their furniture 150 meters away from the presidential palace in Nicosia. 150 meters away from the presidential palace in Nicosia. Somebody dumped their furniture. People dump things. They just dump things. You know, that's what we do here. We go out in the countryside, we have all kinds of rubbish, and we just, well, yes, I'm sorry, we do it. We dump things anywhere. There's a sofa dumped about 1 kilometer away up the road from here. When I go for a coffee with my wife and I look to the right-hand side, somebody dumped a sofa. I'm talking about the countryside here. I'm talking about forests, about trees. Somebody dumped a sofa. I have a suspicion that if I go in Portugal, I will not see this phenomenon. I have that suspicion. Because I think people in Portugal, okay, I said it's anecdotal, and I don't have the hardcore evidence to back this thing. But my feeling is that there are differences, and some societies have more cultural awareness, more solidarity, if you like, more tolerance, if you like, and some societies are more selfish driven, if you like, more egotistical, if you like. Okay, this is Nikos's fancy theory here, without any real evidence, but nevertheless, I do want to back it up in the future. And one of the things we want to do, because educational research and research in social design is of our interest, since we did that metabasis, if you like, since 2017. One of my dreams is, before I retire, to actually manage to sit down and develop what we call in our lab social awareness indicators. So if I had an instrument, if I had a tool, if I had, 20 questions on a piece of paper, and I went and asked these 20 questions to somebody in Portugal, and asked the very same questions to somebody in Cyprus, I could sit down and look at these two and say, oh, wow, I can tell you what the difference is. Of course, I don't have that tool, and I'm contemplating how we're going to develop it in the near future. But nevertheless, I do believe, and that's at the point where I interrupted Teresa, I do believe that indeed, your students were enthusiastic and carried on afterwards, and they did what you said they did. I do believe you, because it's Portugal, and I'm in Cyprus.
Don't believe that it's always like that. It was a story, and I was telling a successful story, but of course we have. That's why I asked you to also to framework the cultural and geographic context where you were, because of course everything is different depending.
Yeah. And that was a smart thing you told me, because I wasn't planning to include it first, even though it is my daily routine. I live in this society, and I deal with this society, and I deal with these students, and hell of a challenge. And I don't know if we're going to resolve it. And I showed you before also a slide with all the issues that the Green Leader Party has identified that are the social issues that are confronting Cyprus. It's not just pollution, it's not just recycling, all kinds of things across the board. And for a small society, I have a very good friend, his name is George. George often says to me, Nikos, he said, we're such a small island, we could have been paradise, but we're not. We're not. I don't know if the driving culture says anything about a people driving, but if you drive in Cyprus, you will understand the Cypriot culture. You will understand it. Because the primary if you like, quote that goes here, that fits here is, if I can get away with something, or rather, if he can get away with it, then I can get away with it too. So if everybody gets away with it, then we can all get away with it. The problem is that if we all get away with it, then what do we have? Where do we end up with all of this? But anyway, I better stop.
And we have to finish. We will see a completely different context in our next Desis Café that will be held by Yangnan Desis Lab in China. Do you want to say something, Ezio?
Small
Just to
thing,
close.
sorry.
Okay.
No, Nikos, again, I have always an audio that do not work well. So maybe I lost something. But I will give you an idea that I don't know if it could work in Cyprus. You said before that you feel that you are, your society is 15 years or some years behind. You were saying, for instance, the Portuguese. But, okay, it is possible. If you say it is sure that it's like this. For me, and this is really where the design for social innovation started nowadays, 15 years ago, quasi 15 years ago, is we cannot say the people in Cyprus or the people in Italy, because if I generalize, it's very rare that you can find something. Nowadays, I said before in my previous small intervention that something is changing, even though in the meantime my politics is awful, but I don't want to open this issue now. But we have to search for some small group of people doing something. So it could be fantastic to have a general index, but more than a general index, for the sake of what we want to do, is to try to change the glasses and try to find a small group of people that are more near to do something that could be interesting. Because, okay, first of all, it's not our role to change the mentality of everybody. This is much more of the politics, or maybe us when we are politics, but not as we are designers. When we are designer, we can work, especially at the beginning, with a small group. And this small group could already be doing something interesting. Or if they are not doing something interesting, you really do not find anybody. I doubt, but you don't find anybody. You can, in any case, focus on a group and try with this group to start something that is a different way of doing things. I remember many years ago when I gave at the beginning of my courses at the university, but it was 15 years ago. So all this discussion about social innovation was not yet even on the horizon for the normal people. And I was giving to my students some example. And all of them said, oh yes, this is interesting, but where I live, there is nothing like this. I said, yes, well, I will challenge you. Now, from now to the next week, you go around and you search in 1 kilometer around where you live, something interesting, something that has some flavor of people going in this direction. And at least in my case, it worked fantastically. This week after, everybody was bringing a lot of interest, spark, some beginning, some interesting case, something interesting. And on this something interesting, we could start to make some work. So, I mean, it's very important not to generalize, but to go very in deep, looking to something special, maybe with the student, using the student to search, using the newspaper to see if there are some interesting story, looking for interesting story where, okay, we have to qualify why they are interesting. Normally, the word is one, because you have people that collaborate in doing something. This is a very basic. So you find somebody that have done something together to get something else. And doing something together, they had also some trust, some good relationship, and some care, and all the good elements that afterward became the pillar of all the other discussion on social innovation. But the beginning, the very important thing, sorry if I repeat, is not to look to the society as a whole, but to look inside the society and to search. It's called social innovation exactly for that, because it's not that if everybody already do it, it's not an innovation. It's important in any case, there is something to do, but it's not an innovation. It is innovation when you have some inventors, somebody that starts to do something that is against what is happening around. And I don't know if this advice maybe is too obvious, or maybe you have already tried, or maybe I don't know. This is what came in my mind when you was talking on the fact that the Cyprus society appear you to be behind some others.
A good idea to explore. A good idea to explore, because sometimes we look at the big picture and miss the small picture.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's a good idea to explore. Thank you.
So now I think we have to go. So thank you to all of you. So our, as Giselle is saying, our next Desis Café will be on the 15th of March and hosted by Yangnan University Desis Lab in China. So we will travel to another culture. We will have, I hope, some good examples of what they are doing there. And thank you for being here. Let's keep in touch.
Ciao
Bye, guys.
e buon anno.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Nico.
everyone.
Thank you, Nikos.
Yeah.
It was
Buon
fantastic
coniglio.
to see what you are doing.
Ciao, ciao.
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 Ciao.